This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who this past weekend, on Saturday, December 3rd at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, defeated Kevin Holland by TKO via corner stoppage after the fourth round ended. Whew, what a fight this was. People were calling it already a fight of the year candidate pretty much the night that it ended. Fight of the night honors for both of these guys. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your reaction of the way the fight ended at the end of the fourth round and of the performances of both these men overall?
I'm going to be the Debbie Downer on this one. As much as it was a great fight and it was a fun fight, and I get why people are talking up and all that, I can't feel any other emotion than how fucking annoyed I am with Kevin Holland that he had the biggest opportunity of his life, and he goes in there and he's like, no, I'm not touching the ground. I'm just going to have a striking contest with, of all people, Stephen Thompson. Like, it's not easy being a fan of Kevin Holland. Like, the first round of the fight was fun, and they're scrapping, and they're going back and forth, and Holland is hanging with him on the feet. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But I am figuring at some point here we're going to work in some grappling and clinches and scrambles and whatever because he's fighting Stephen Thompson. Never am I thinking we're going to go 25 minutes here in a friggin' striking battle. And then come rounds 2 and 3, and in both rounds, there is some type of transition where they hit the ground, and Kevin Holland is on top and in control. And both times he's like, no, up, and gets off Stephen Thompson and lets him up. And I'm like, is this really what we're doing? Like, in the biggest opportunity of Kevin Holland's life where he can win and be ranked top 10 and be in huge fights and finally get to, like, where we all think his talent should be in terms of the level that he's at. And I get it. Like, I get it that the guy is an entertainer and he loves to be that guy and that he probably wants to see if he can beat Stephen Thompson on the feet. But you only get so many opportunities in this sport. And like I said, it's Stephen Thompson. Like, if there was ever a guy who you're like, okay, maybe I should at least try grappling at one point, the guy is Stephen Thompson. So, plus, then we learn later that the issues with his hand started in round 1. So it's like, all right, sure, you wanted to exchange with him, but then when you break your fucking hand in round 1, it's all right if you mix in some grappling. So, I don't know. I can't shake just how annoyed I am that Kevin Holland let this opportunity slip through his fingers because he wanted to be an entertainer. And again, I get it, and who am I? If that's what he wants to be, that's what he wants to be. I just see the talent in him. I feel like there's a level that he can reach that he is not reaching. So that's like my main takeaway thought that I can't get out of my brain for this fight. But, of course, I want to give props to Stephen Thompson as well. That dude went in there and scrapped. He ate shots, especially in round 1. He ate quite a few big shots, kept going. And, he got himself a straight striking match. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody who pays attention, he shined. Like, I've seen a fair amount of, like, almost surprise takes coming out about this fight, which I don't get. Like, oh, man, like, wow, Stephen Thompson was back. Stephen Thompson looked incredible. Like, that's Stephen Thompson. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. If you fight his fight with him, you go 25 minutes on the feet with that guy. That's exactly what he's going to do every time. That's not, in no way am I surprised by that development. So, he looked awesome, of course, and it's a big win career-wise for him in terms of where he was at. But it's also a massive missed opportunity career-wise for Kevin Holland.
Agreed. Omar, agree, disagree? What was your take on the performances of both Holland and Wonderboy?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, the fight was great. I really enjoyed the fight. Being there live, the energy and all that electricity was palpable, to say the least. But you couldn't help feeling like, and so I should mention in the moment, I remember thinking that in round 3, after he caught a spinning heel kick to the hand, I thought that's when he broke his hand. And so from round 3 on, I thought that was when he was compromised. 1 and 2 had never even occurred to me that he had hurt his hand. So it was a little bit different, I guess, through that lens at that moment, because to me, that is when he started to kind of wrestle, or at least attempt to start going for the wrestling, kind of at the beginning of round, or the end of round 3, beginning of round 4, that kind of deal. Found out later, looking at highlights and stuff later on, he started talking to Wonderboy and saying, I got to do what I got to do. But I can't help but also kind of be annoyed, because if you did break your hand in the first round, to me, that's like the prime reason to be like, okay, whatever gentleman's agreement we had to not take each other down kind of goes out the window when I'm fighting with one hand. True. So, because at that point, it's not really a proper striking match anymore, is it? It's the man's broken. So, to me, it changes the dynamic a little bit. He eventually took him down anyway, so the idea that you let him up earlier also is stupid.
He never took him down. What do you mean?
Or they got down to the ground at a couple points.
Oh, there were a couple points right up. He intentionally let him up.
But that's my point, is you were already compromised, and then eventually you tried to take him down later on in the fight anyway, couldn't do it in the first place, and so the moments where you did have him down on the ground almost now seem even more ridiculous that you let him up.
Yes.
So there is a lot of frustration in that specific thing. When it comes to Wonderboy, everyone should fucking pray to have counters like that man. Pray to have timing like that man. The way he's able to read people come in, manage his distance, and blast that left hand the way that he does, or frankly the right hand, because he's so good at switching stances. But it's really a wonder to watch it and how many times he does it. And I don't even want to say there's no power behind it, because there's definite power behind those strikes. Kevin Holland ate a lot of shit, and he's definitely got a chin for sure.
He's known for eating shots.
Those straight shots, those straight counter shots were nasty, man. They were very, very nasty. And of course, the kicks, again, one can only pray to have kicks like that and mix them into their combos like that. He gave Wonderboy a platform to shine, and Wonderboy did just that.
It was a striker's delight. I mean, this is why the UFC brought Stephen Thompson into the fold for fights like this, for moments like this. And, he's coming off back-to-back losses against, who was it? Bilal and Burns.
And Burns, yeah.
And, man, to your point, Mark, it's hard to be a Kevin Holland fan. It's like, I'm such a fan of his. But I thought of this analogy when you said that. Being a Kevin Holland fan is kind of like what it's been like to be a Knicks fan for the past, 10 years. It's like you love them. But then sometimes you're just like, as a franchise, you're like, what are they doing? Yeah. That's like I feel like a Kevin Holland. It's like I love him, but it's like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like he could be so much better. He could not be. He is as good as he is, but his choices,
his results could be so much better. Yeah.
His results.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all.
And you do have to give Kevin Holland credit, because he dropped Wonderboy, or at least that. I can't remember if he actually dropped him or if he at least rocked him. But I mean, he tagged him. He definitely put the paws on him, and a lot of people don't touch Wonderboy. Throughout 5 rounds, 3 rounds, people don't touch him a lot of the time. So, got to give him credit, man.
I thought... Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I think his hand broke probably when he hit Thompson on the forehead. That almost dropped him. That was square on the forehead punch.
Could be.
Yeah.
And I thought he could hang with Thompson on the feet.
Same.
Because of how kind of tricky he's not like this clean striker. He's awkward. He's long. He takes weird angles, but also because of how he can mix it up, and that Thompson would have to be thinking about that. As the fight went on, and Thompson realized, okay, this dude is never trying to clinch me or grab me in any way, you kind of lose your ability to be a little awkward, and you lose an edge that you had. So he took it away from himself.
Absolutely.
We should also give credit, because no one ever does, to the corner of Kevin Holland for stopping that fight when they did. Because they could have definitely, like 98% of the other coaches I think out there would have definitely been like, listen, man, you got to do something. You got 5 minutes. I know your hand's fucked up. You might never use it again, but you know what? This is your opportunity, man. Go out there. You might never carry your kid, but fuck that. Go out there, win that fight. And he would have went out there, and the end of the 4th round, where he was basically turtled up against the cage, taking wild shit from Stephen Thompson, would have just continued for another 5 minutes, and it might have been even significantly worse than where we ended in the 4th round. So kudos to his corner for doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, he was against the cage because he knew he could roll there, and he knew he was so defenseless that he was going to get caught if he didn't at least have that ability to roll. If he was out in the open, he was going to get caught.
Yeah, he couldn't even move his arm. His arm was down. It was like by his side. It was the right call to make to end that fight.
Let's talk about where these two gentlemen go from here. So we have the winner, Stephen Thompson, the 39-year-old South Carolinian. He gets back in the win column, like I said, after 2 straight losses against Burns and Bilal. He's now 17-6 as a pro. This was his 8th knockout/TKO. Mark, at welterweight, he's been around here for a minute. I mean, I think he's been in the UFC for close to a decade now. I think he came in when he was like 30, and now he's almost 40. And who else is there left for him to fight at welterweight? Still in the top 10.
2012 he came to the UFC. I had to look it up. So, yes, well done.
Wow.
So, he threw this out there. I don't know what the hell Jorge Masvidal is ever doing. He's a very hard guy to put a finger on of who he may fight and when he may fight. But obviously they have fought before. Stephen Thompson won a decision. He is saying he'd love to fight Jorge again. I know Jorge talks a lot about how he should be fighting Leon Edwards and whoever else, but if we're being honest, Jorge is not getting that fight right now. So I think this fight actually makes a lot of sense. It's a chance for Jorge to get a loss back. Maybe he'd be into that. At least he would reignite some momentum, and then maybe he is getting a bigger fight like he's talking about. So I think that makes sense. If that doesn't happen, the other name I heard Wonderboy throw out was Michel Pereira, which I'd be down for too, because that just seems like a wild fight.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That'd be cool.
I'll take that all day. Absolutely.
You second that?
Also, I would second that. I will also point out that Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal will totally happen if Usman pulls out like a week before. Jorge will be fucking in there like swimwear. They will sell the shit out of it. It'll be a spectacle. And that is how Jorge gets another title shot.
That's a great point. He's probably in shape, hoping for that opportunity.
Yep, he's waiting.
Yeah.
Let's move on quickly to Kevin Trailblazer Holland, 30-year-old from California. His second straight loss now, and his record drops to 23-9. Wow, still a great record for Holland. Give me a name, Omar, at welterweight. If he is going to keep fighting at welterweight, a lot of interesting matchups because he's brand new to the weight division. So who do you think would be interesting for him next?
I like him at welterweight, to be honest. I think what really set him back in this Stephen Thompson fight was not ability. It was not technique. It was fight IQ. It was the choices that he made in the cage that led him to where he went. But I do not think that skill for skill, he is not able to beat Wonderboy Thompson. Even now, I would probably still pick him to beat him in an MMA match. What he tried to fight him in is... What he did end up fighting him in was essentially a kickboxing fight. And I would never have picked Kevin Holland to win a kickboxing fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So with that being said, I do want to see Kevin Holland still climbing the rankings. I wouldn't imagine he drops very low in the rankings. We'll go to the Prio rankings for that later on, I would assume. But I want to see him against Daniel Rodriguez. I think D-Rod is a good test for him. I think that skill for skill, they would be very fun, very entertaining. They're very complementary to one another. And I think D-Rod, coming off of a loss, also needs a nice name to win off of. And I think this is an opportunity for him to do that too.
I like it a lot. Mark, any other ideas?
So I'll tell you his ranking now because he's not someone who really moved off of this. He is my number 21 ranked welterweight. So he's kind of in that group of guys who are just outside of these rankings. I'm assuming he is in a similar spot in the UFC because he's not in the top 15, but I assume he's not far out of it. So he's 21 in mine, and another guy who is right in that area, or two guys, one of whom I was going to say is D-Rod. I think that's a great matchup. I think it makes a lot of sense. I actually think he is ranked in the UFCs. I think he's 15th in the UFCs.
15, I think so, yeah.
And another one is the Leech, Li Jingliang. I think, and who knows how long Holland is going to be out for with this hand injury, but I think him against another guy who's kind of right at the edge of these rankings is where Kevin Holland should be fighting right now.
Yeah, we should actually mention that Kevin Holland did break his third, fourth, and fifth metacarpals.
Oh, three? Damn.
Yeah.
And there's physical bone displacement as well. So his hand is fucked. Yeah. He's definitely going to need surgery. They've already said he's going to need surgery for it. So he might be done for 2023, or at least the majority of it.
He'll probably retire at least once between now and whenever he fights again.
God, it's such a fucking brutal sport. And what a brutal fight that actually, it really was.
Yeah.
And the irony, too, there's a little bit of irony that's like, because it's against the backdrop of like two of the nicest fucking guys to ever like step into the cage together. They like basically made out like when the bell rang and like the whole time they're like talking nicely to each other the whole time.
I would love to hear Bisping's commentary because I realized afterwards that I didn't hear any commentary, obviously, while I was there. So Bisping tends to hate that shit. He hates people like hugging and high-fiving during the fight, and they were doing that for 5 or 4 rounds. So I would imagine how much Bisping was losing his fucking mind on that broadcast.
I feel like he didn't say that much, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I will
he
say
hates it, man. I've heard him just go off about it in the past.
For my own part, as much as I hate unsportsmanlike shit, like when a guy goes for a fist bump as like a sportsmanship, but then like fakes it and like goes for a punch or like ducks under, I fucking hate. That's garbage to me.
Oh yeah.
On the other side of it,
go to jail.
yeah, for sure. On the other side of the spectrum here, I actually really don't like it when guys show
I don't either.
so much love in the fight. I'm like, stop. You gotta fight right now.
I think there are appropriate moments, but Kevin Holland and Stephen Thompson were doing it like every other exchange. That's a bit. It's a bit much. Beginning of the round, you want to give him a hug or something like that's cool, but let's get to work. You know what I mean?
I don't like round 1 hug. I also don't like the start of round 5 hug. Get it out of here. I don't like it. Okay.
I saw Cheeto tweet something along the lines of like, enough of the fucking high-fiving, and I was like, thank you, Cheeto.
Of course you would. Yes. Like high five and hug after the fight. I love seeing that. When the sportsmanship comes out, when the fight's over, love it. But in the fight, I don't like it. Okay.
I don't mind it at the
on.
beginning of a round.
I don't mind it before strikes are exchanged. Like,
Right.
Tuivasa and Pavlovich did it. They walked out, they hugged each other, and they said, all right, time to fight. If it is before the fight begins,
Brutality.
totally fine. When that fight is happening, I want to see fucking Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald level stare downs between rounds.
Yeah.
I would actually be more annoyed if they started fucking hugging at the beginning of rounds 2, 3, and 4. Like either hug at the beginning, very beginning of the fight, and then if you want, hug at the very end of the fight, like before the last round begins, if you want. But like to just hug every fucking round, like I don't need this.
The start of the 5th, I can live with. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, we've been through 20 minutes of war. I respect you. Quick hug.
Let's go.
I live with it. But the whole in between rounds shit, I can't.
Yeah. The in between rounds drives me crazy.